guys, okay, so check this out. Here comes the air, here comes the
right here, this, whatever this is, this right here. We think it's air, but I realize that if I stop, close my nose and mouth for 4 minutes, if I'm separated from this substance for 4 minutes, my heart don't stop, my brain don't even stop, my body functions don't stop. The first thing I lose is consciousness. I pass out. I could no longer stay aware. So I started to say, well, wait a minute. I'm not just breathing in air. I'm breathing in consciousness. I'm inhaling and exhaling God itself. And this air is conscious.
Bam, I think you know what he's saying. He's saying that what you're breathing, if you stop breathing for 4 minutes, your heart doesn't stop, your brain doesn't stop, your liver doesn't stop, your pancreas, your gizzards, your acres, your makers, nothing stops. Just you. You lay there, unconscious. You lose consciousness. But when you wake up and you take a breath in, you breathe in, that's right, consciousness. Let's move ahead. Here we go.
Okay, I'm going to say this in a somewhat coded way so that you're able to receive this information on this app, and then I'm going to tell you how to go find more of it. Okay, so there are these places underground. Every musician, celebrity, actor, even wrestlers and athletes, almost like 90 to 99% of famous individuals partake in these underground places.
Do you know how much kahunas it takes to say what she's saying? Like, she's saying the truth. What she's saying is a real thing. But it just takes kahunas, I think, genetically she doesn't come with. Where she gets her confidence, I don't know, but I'd like to know more. Back to the lizard people.
They wake up in these underground places when they go to sleep at night. And they wake up in these bodies that look like them, but these bodies were grown in a tube.
Test tube, baby!
So I'm just going to say this is fictional, just so the algorithm doesn't delete me immediately. Anyway, so within these underground places, there are these like lizards. Every time I say lizard, I get deleted. Just, you know, a normal lizard. There's different kinds of them. I'm not going to say what they do.
I think the style is this, right?
But yeah, they're part of it. And I think, so, okay, I'm going to tell you how to get more information on this. There's a man who is the #1 whistleblower, and he has...
And I don't know if she's talking about David Icke. I think she's going to say a different name in the long run, but I'm saying it's David Icke. Coming at you. All right, get back to the girl. And the lizard people.
Interviews, and you can find them on YouTube. There's like a 6-part per... Each part is an hour long, and it's all the interviews combined and clipped together in such a way that it's easy to understand and get all of the information in the easiest way you can. It's a lot of information. His name is Donald. His last name, I'm going to say in code. I'm going to go shopping at Marshall's without the final S. So Donald, I'm going to go shop at Marshall's.
Hey, this girl.
Without the final
watch her.
S. Okay.
Easy on the eyes, but crazy as hell. But crazy in a good way. Crazy right. She's telling the truth.
Welcome to the rabbit hole of the ultimate mindfuck.
It's the mindfuck, you guys, right here, right now. Let's go. Keep it going.
Okay, I'm going to say this in a...
Trillions.
Oh, Michael Jackson. Here we go.
Trillions in ancient trusts belong to black people. It is a whitewashed
Moors,
narrative
people.
to disinherit the true heirs of the empire.
Your Highness, are you saying the original nobles were black people?
The real nobility, the original European royalty, were Moors.
I don't know if they're going to say it here, but what she needs to say is, you remember when me and Michael Jackson, remember when me and Michael Jackson was hanging out? That was no accident. That song, Dirty Guy, I know. Oh, it's about her. I don't know if you know that or not.
They've hidden this history to maintain control over trillions of dollars. These,
respectively, he was playing in England at the, the big England Bowl place where they had a lot of 90,000 people, Castle Donington, it's not it. Anyway, he's going to play there. Well, he cuts Dirty Diana from the band set list. And she said before the show she met him, he said, yes, I get some. She's like, wow, that's my favorite song. Dirty Diana, oh, Dirty Diana. Oh, here we go.
it is a whitewash narrative to disinherit the true heirs of the empire.
Your Highness, are you saying the original nobles were black people?
The real nobility,
Moors.
the original European royalty, were Moors. They've hidden this history to maintain control over trillions of dollars. These Moors were present on both sides of the Atlantic.
Right now, they've made the information on black people's past. And I hate saying black people. It's really an uncomfortable thing. Let me ask you this question. Where did the white people come from? Leave it comments. Leave it down in the comments. Where did the white people come from? A lot of people say Europe, and you'd be right. Britain, you'd be right. Germany, Russia, and you'd be right. But when those people come to this country, they didn't call them white people. What they call them? When the Russians came here, what they call them? Russians. When the British came here, what they call them? British. It wasn't until they were here and enslaved, much like the black people before them and after them. Watch it. Much like the black people before them and after them, they have became. What is the matter? What's wrong? Huh? What is it? What is it? Anyway, black people, much like they were enslaved, just like the white people were. They were brought over here, they were enslaved. You're enslaved to this day. You're enslaved like my dentures. All right, let's get back to it. Here we go. Dirty Diana.
Ruling from old America to the courts of Europe.
The Moors were all over the fucking world, ruling from Tartary to the Americas. Not just from North Africa. Then we came along as Mamelukes and Castratos and fucked it all up by burying the truth of the Asiatic...
If you look at the...
Oh, I'm sorry about that. Sorry about that. Bam! Back to the show. All right.
I'm gonna say
Trillions?
Yes, trillions in ancient trust belong to black people. It is a whitewash narrative to disinherit the true heirs of the empire.
Your Highness, are you saying the original nobles were black people?
The real nobility, the original European royalty, were Moors. They've hidden this history to maintain control
Less
over
of a
trillions
Moor.
dollars. These Moors were present on both sides of the Atlantic, ruling from old America to the courts of Europe.
The Moors were all over the fucking world, ruling from Tartary to the Americas. Not just from North Africa. Then we came along as Mamelukes and Castratos and fucked it all up by burying the
Castratos,
truth of the
Mamelukes.
Asiatic...
If you look at the coats of arms within these very walls, you see the truth they've tried to repaint. The original European royalty were Moors.
The Moors were doing so much fucking in Europe, trying to help us to get rid of our animal gene. They were trying to civilize the wild white men by grafting their divine blood into the recessive DNA.
But the names George, Charles, Charlotte, surely these aren't Moorish?
They were all black nobility names first. The stewards simply assumed the titles of their masters to disinherit the true heirs.
Yes.
The names are masks: Windsor, Sassoon, Habsburg and Medici, all Moorish families that civilized Europa long before the historical reset. You want to know a secret? Dirty Diana wasn't a metaphor. It was personal. Michael tried to tell you he was Moorish nobility. Why do you think we hooked up?
Dirty Diana wasn't a metaphor. It was personal. Michael wrote it because we were closer than the world was ever allowed to know. We had fallen in love. I loved Michael. Truth doesn't need permission.
The Moors ruled the world with shared
The
gold from
truth
South
doesn't need
America,
permission.
where Aztec
Love
kings like
doesn't ask you
Montezuma
your
were Moorish
permission.
sovereigns. The wealth
It
of the
just
Inca
is.
Empire was bonded to the old world through figures like King Charles.
Every culture around the world, all Moors first. And Moor doesn't mean just North Africa, Muslims. They're the indigenous Americans. It was a global Moorish empire. The original European nobility were all Moors, so-called black people. They ran all of Europe and Asia and America.
Wow, that's more than most people are going to be able to take in a day. I know that's AI, but sometimes we need AI to show you the truth. There's more, and there's less of the Moors. Here we go.
Fucking idiots. The greatest minds are the divergents here in the mental hospitals. They know the truth. They know about the Moors that built the old world. But we are called lunatics because you sheep are so programmed from your schools.
The These mental asylum buildings were actually, as the old folks say, dug out of the mud following the cataclysms of the 1800s and repurposed as grand prisons for the mind.
And they locked black people in those hospitals and schools, called it re-education. They were trying to erase who they were, the history they carried. They had been here.
Many indigenous so-called blacks who refused to comply with the new corporate order were deemed insane and disappeared into these wards. Once their memory was wiped and their spirit fractured, these original landowners were redesignated.
Population re-educated, a history whitewashed. The foundlings of this era will have no memory of the giants who once walked these floors. The poisoned apple of their disclosure is complete.
They were calling black folks crazy just because they held on to or woke up to what they believed were deeper senses of mind. Schizophrenia, they stamped it on them like it was a disease. To me, that's not sickness. You're saying authority.
The most chilling aspect of mental asylums is the Lunacy Act. This allowed the new controllers to institutionalize the survivors of the old world, the indigenous melanated people.
Many more caught wearing a fez, speaking ancient Punic dialects, or asserting an allodial title to the land was deemed insane and disappeared into these mental hospitals and given a surgical pickaxe to the skull.
Out of the jungle, and you want to make them into a man. Why couldn't it be left to be God? Why do you want to make them to a man? In the jungle, they were God. People who don't think along the same lines as everyone else get written off as crazy. That's what the system does. It locks them in a box, tells the world they're broken. It's a way to keep them from questioning the picture that's been painted.
I find myself on the planet Ogo, part of an intellectual elite, preparing to subjugate the barbarian hordes on Pluto. But even though this is a totally convincing reality for me in every way, nevertheless, Ogo is actually a construct of my psyche. I am mentally divergent in that I am escaping certain unnamed realities that plague my life here. When I stop going there, I will be well. Are you also divergent, friend?
Many of the patients sent here were ones who are divergent and refuse to consent to this fake simulation or program construct that governs our daily lives. They can see through the fake illusion and lies.
People toss around that phrase conspiracy theory like a brick, and it was put out there to shut down thought. The agency wanted the public to scoff at anything that didn't line up with the official story. You tell folks they're crazy and they stop asking.
I think you guys know what they're trying to say. There's less of the Moors. Here we go. Let's get
Just went
forward.
on Josh Peck's podcast, and Charlie Sheen's
Who
ex just
did?
made a
I missed who she said. Let's have it
Big
again.
Bill just went on Josh Peck's
Big Bill.
podcast, and Charlie Sheen's ex just made a chilling public statement. I'm about to tell you guys how that's connected and why this picture is so haunting.
It was the monster was there.
The Hollywood secrets that we're about to deep dive are so dark and disturbing that barely anybody is talking about this. Brian Peck, Drake Bell, Charlie Sheen, and Corey Haim. Names we've all heard, but the connection here is startling, you guys. These topics we're about to get into do get heavy, so in an effort for this information to no longer be suppressed, please engage and share with this if you can, and buckle up as we dive deep into Hollywood's darkest secrets. So first we'll start out in February of last year on the Boy Meets World's Cast podcast. On that episode last February, they mentioned a name that you've heard me speak about before. Brian Peck, who was a guest actor and crew member on the 90s sitcom Boy Meets World. Writers Strong and Wilford L. describe how Brian Peck managed to become very integrated into their personal lives as young kids. They recount Brian Peck's eagerness to be good pals with them, hanging out with them a lot after work, which they now describe as weird and wildly inappropriate. But of course, as young child actors, they didn't realize the grave seriousness of this at the time.
Kids are scared. You know, kids don't think I'm gonna go. First of all, for me, the person that was doing it to me the most, you know, Charlie Sheen. The two people that did it to me were both close friends of mine. Or so I thought.
That was Corey Feldman, a child star from the 80s who was quoted saying that Brian Peck would invite him to his house to watch movies, and he'd go because he trusted him, but there was always a vibe like he was too close and too interested. Later in his 2020 documentary that's called My Truth, Corey Feldman again named Brian Peck, saying Brian Peck was one of those guys who was always around us kids. We didn't think much of it at the time, but looking back, knowing what he did, it's clear he was part of that world.
Brian, who was ever present during the Amanda show. And then...
Well, that's another thing, too, you can kind of, like... it was like ever present, right? Like just everywhere that
It immediately becomes clear that Brian Peck's troubling time in Hollywood orbiting around young boys goes way farther back than just The Amanda Show and Drake and Josh. This traces all the way back to the mid-'80s when he worked as a dialogue coach on the set of Growing Pains with a very young Leonardo DiCaprio.
Leo, as you know, is the latest, hottest, hunkiest teen idol there is.
Yeah, muscles.
Look, speaking of hunky, huh?
Leo,
what's it like to be a teen idol?
Ask her Cameron.
Show us the little drawings. Oh, the
You
little
see,
drawings.
we draw drawings of each other. Brian is the famous artist, and we always make fun of each other and portray each other in silly, satirical ways.
Leo's job on this set, for some reason, is to make fun of me all day long.
Brian Peck also worked on All That and The Amanda Show alongside Dan Schneider, which is where he began preying on Drake Bell. He was then later put back on a set with Amanda Bynes alongside Dan Schneider yet again in her show What I Like About You. But before that, he also worked on Good Burger and The Keenan and Kel Show with a very young Kel Mitchell and Kenan Thompson, who also starred on All That. And he was a dialogue coach on the set of Holes with a very young Shia LaBeouf. But now, since the documentary Quiet on Set aired last year, Brian Peck is best known for being convicted in 2004 for a Nickelodeon star who was later to be revealed as Drake Bell. Brian Peck systematically groomed Drake Bell, who was a very young teenager at the time.
That big break between Drake and Josh and Amanda Show is when I told my mom we went to the police. The investigation, all the stuff that you saw in the documentary, that was when all of that was going on.
A baffling and heartbreaking revelation that we found out from Drake is that even after he had confided in his mother and there was an investigation underway into Brian Peck was still allowed on Dan Schneider's set to do the pilot of Drake and Josh, even though that was the workplace of the very child who was accusing him.
And then we do the pilot. When we did the pilot.
And we're like 14.
Yeah, and so now I'm coming back. He hasn't been arrested. And I don't know if you remember, but he came and visited during the pilot. And I got him, and I made sure, and that was an issue. But I still had to play like, hey, cool, whatever. Like,
Wow.
You're about to get arrested, bro.
Has this replayed?
And as we know, Drake did eventually get his day in court to stare down his abuser, but the atmosphere was not what you would hope for.
When we went to court, his entire side of the courtroom is full of directors, producers, writers, actors. It was just mind-blowing. And I was just sent into like a state of shock when I walked into that courtroom.
Drake found himself in a courtroom of Hollywood industry professionals, co-workers, and even people he considered friends, who were sitting largely in support of a 40-year-old man who was admitting to essaying a child actor who was in his professional care. Some of these Hollywood industry professionals even going as far as writing a letter of support to the judge on behalf of Brian Peck.
Totally re-traumatized to later get these letters, which I just got last year.
I drank a beer. I can do what I want now.
For every letter I turn,
That's why I'm giving shit right there.
See the name at the end.
That's why you don't get nothing, Daddy, right there.
The letter and go.
Oh, I thought you was gonna walk him. My fault. How quick, cousin? My fault. You good?
We were friends, and the way that they portrayed me in the letters,
which ultimately led to a reduced plea of 2 counts of the 11 charges and a sentencing of only 16 months in prison. But here's the kicker, you guys. Hollywood didn't even blink about this. Brian Peck kept friends, big ones like Charlie Sheen. And that's where all of this starts to get really weird. So upon this guy's release from prison, Hollywood promptly hires him back on the child scene to be on none other than the show Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, where he did voiceovers for 3 episodes before he got fired. He had once again strategically positioned himself with the help of industry allies to be on a major child production with 2 very young boys. During this time, registered S offenders were still allowed to work in Hollywood. It actually wasn't until the Child Protection Act of 2012 where children then had legal protection from working with offenders on the registry. And I know all of that is enough to make you you guys sick, but this is where we really start to get into things. After Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, Brian Peck picks up a few other sporadic gigs. He was part of Bedtime Stories and had a small role in Forever Strong, and somehow he was even hired as a dialogue coach on the family film Jack and the Beanstalk. And all of that led him to eventually securing a role from his good friend Charlie Sheen to be a stand-in and dialogue coach on the show Anger Management. This is all following Charlie Sheen's tumultuous tiger blood-fueled departure from 2.5 Men, and after knowing that Brian Peck is on the registered list. Despite getting pushback from other people, it's said that Charlie Sheen secured Brian Peck's paid position. And how do we know that Charlie Sheen and Brian Peck were friends? Well, let's start with some behind-the-scene footage of them together on the set of Anger Management.
It's my brilliant co-star. It's Brian, my sometimes brilliant stand-in.
And even more recently, we can peruse their social media and see that this is Charlie Sheen and Brian Peck having leisure time together in Scotland. Here is Peck and Sheen in a photo together captioned, "I have some kick-ass friends, love you Charlie Sheen and the Peck." Here's Charlie Sheen reposting a message that says, "Back at work and hanging with the Woof and the Peck. Not a bad way to spend a Monday." Here's Charlie Sheen posting about the adventures of Peck and Sheen, saying, "Once again, MIT grant-sanctioned archaeologists Peck and Sheen rig battle gear for tonight's sortie on the Loch Ness. 2:34 a.m. in 2013. Here we have Charlie Sheen with his friend Brian Peck in another solo shot together. Greatest Dad Award, Charlie Sheen. And of course, Sheen and Peck on the set of Anger Management. The Charlie Sheen-Brian Peck friendship is further troubling due to the similarities and accusations brought against both men by former teen idols that they had worked with.
That's crazy that it had taken that long to get into the Peck. Let's get into another one right here.
Watch this.
It just came out in the Epstein files that the elites were purposely trying to lower testosterone in men so that men can't fight back, putting estrogen in the water, making men very passive and weak through social media. They're telling them, oh, your masculinity is toxic and you should actually just be super soft and sweet all the time and gentle and never fight against anything. It's to cover up the things that they're doing. Because if every single man had the mindset of, no, our job is to protect women and children no matter what, they would not be getting away with the things that they're getting away with.
She revealed why men today are no longer the same, and it's terrifying. More and more, we've been told that masculinity was the problem, that men needed to change, become softer, calmer, and never raise their voice, and we all accepted it without questioning anything. But what was discovered in the files today proves that all of this was part of a much bigger plan to deliberately lower men's testosterone through what we drink, what we eat, and what we consume on social media, to make men passive so they never fight back again. Because the only thing that could destroy all of this is men who decide to protect women and children no matter what. Curious men who ask questions, and especially men who refuse to look away. And that is exactly what they do not want. So they found the perfect solution. Convince the entire world that those kinds of men are dangerous, that wanting to protect people is toxic. And while everyone debates masculinity, they continue carrying out their plan effortlessly, because it's already working without them even having to force it.
Man, the things people do, the things people say.
Watch this.
It just came out in the Epstein file.
So people on TikTok are starting to realize that food is getting fake. It started when someone posted the video of their Hershey's chocolate bar not melting even in really high heat, causing people to quickly point out that Hershey's recently changed their formula, which is something even the founder of Reese's called out, since Hershey's is making their chocolate. Now people are saying that to the point that it's made out of just oils and chemicals to taste like chocolate, since they no longer use cocoa. But what's even worse is that people are noticing changes in other foods like bread, saying a lot of store-bought bread has been way more spongy. And when you put it in water, it doesn't even dissolve, like normal bread should. Because of this, people everywhere started testing this. And people in other countries are even comparing their bread to American bread, saying something is seriously off with food in America.
It's off the world.
So people on
AI took over the world hundreds of years ago. Your history is all AI. Photoshop has been around for hundreds of years, through various means. Photos themselves are much older than we are told, at least 200 years. And I don't believe the first Photoshop is in 1857 like they say. The Mona Lisa was printed, it wasn't painted. Renaissance paintings like the Mona Lisa were made with 2-micron paint. 30 to 50 microns is the average today. It was perfectly layered and couldn't be replicated today. Yet we're supposed to believe that Da Vinci made it with mortar and pestle paints. Nothing today can be compared to what was being made in 1434 by Jan van Eyck. The reflection in the background is perfectly displaying the reversed image. No one can replicate this level of detail. This is a print, a laser print. Photoshop was also done through etching. We have all been getting catfished. How much of the history has been etched away? These are the original filters. Cartoon filter, whitewash filter, sepia, grayscale. Supposedly there were no Civil War photos in battle, but plenty right before. And it doesn't stop with people. Looks like a lively city block, huh? Those people are painted in. This is in the New York Public Library. You can see they're painted in if you look closely. That horse was never there. You can see they removed people from this one. Their legs are still there. I'm sure many of you know about the Vanilla Sky photos. What a terrible crop job there. They edit out the skies and remove buildings. The sky is commonly cropped out poorly. This whole building is superimposed onto this block. Yet they have been able to solve overexposure in the skies since 1867 with the collodion process. Oops, actually 1857. Yet we get vanilla skies even into the 20th century. Maybe this is why. Even in film we have layering. Half the people aren't even paying attention to this. History is worse than chicks with BBLs and filters. And don't get me started on the sculptures. I've actually been to this place too. The name of this piece is called Deception. It's made out of a block of marble. It's a fishnet made out of a block of marble, and he made it in secrecy. More laser technology that the mutants took over after the reset. That slightly raised pinky causing that muscle flex being captured perfectly like that. The Renaissance was a reset. None of these artists existed. The technology was usurped and used to whitewash the history. And there was a hard reset between 1776 and the Civil War. AI is the opposite of Yah. It's really AI. AI has existed since ever. It is a program that is being uploaded through organic AI, aka human programs.
Well, I believe we've been here the whole time. We're coming back to be here again. We'll be here in the back. In the back of the break.
J-Lo. A-Rod. Will Smith. Alicia Keys. Black King God. Justin Bieber. Kevin Hart. Mark Wahlberg. Snoop. DJ Khaled. Chris B. Kelly Rowland. Chris Brown. Maluma. Issa Rae. Sierra. Janelle Monáe. Yeah.
Oh, if we'd have known then, 4 years ago, what we know now.
What's a conspiracy theory you 100% know is true?
Root canals. There's this YouTube video, which before was a documentary on Netflix before it got pulled after 2 weeks, known as The Root Cause. The Root Cause discusses the big psyop by dental industry and by big pharma to fuck people's health up through root canals. You can't even watch it in the United States. You have to turn on a VPN because it's banned by the American.
Like if you're ever going to get a root canal, or you're taking someone to go get a root canal, ask them, can I have the teeth? Don't just throw it randomly in the trash can in a glove. Throw it in the trash can, that'll be cool. Ask them for it. Ask them. Look into it.
Dental Association, which is in bed with Big Pharma, and I can say that because dentists can't say it because they'll lose their license, but I can say it because I don't have a license. I had a root canal recently removed, and once they did the DNA biopsy on the tooth, they found 20 different types of parasites growing and living inside of my jaw. So stay away from fluoride, and now stay away from root canals.
No problem.
I actually met someone who worked at the
I don't
CIA,
like this guy, but
and I
listen.
asked him the question. I said, yo, it wasn't me, it was a friend of mine asked it while we were there. He said, how many conspiracy theories are true? And the guy laughed and he said, obviously I can't say anything to you, but he said, but I will tell you this. Oftentimes at the agency, we would be grateful. This was a really interesting phrase. He said, we would be grateful at how crazy conspiracy theorists were, because half the time they were correct, but half the time their conspiracies were so crazy that we never needed to like step in and
balance.
And it was this interesting concept to me where I went like, whoa. Wait, so half the things you think
are crazy.
Whatever you are, whoever you are in your world, half the things that you think are crazy are probably true.
Yes.
And then half the things that you think are true are probably crazy. The difficulty is we'll just never know.
I think we know, even when the paid people like Trevor Noah are saying
someone who worked
conspiracies are real, you gotta listen.
How insanely bonkers it is that a place like Epstein's Island even existed. But what most people don't know is that it wasn't the first of its kind. Decades earlier, in the middle of Lake Michigan, a desolate island owned by a wealthy Detroit socialite became the subject of all sorts of wild conspiracy theories. And at first, a conspiracy theory is exactly what most people thought it was. While on the surface, it was just a summer camp for young boys, teaching them survivalist skills in nature, behind the scenes, these children were being flown to this island to be exploited, filmed, and traded among the men who sponsored the island's operations. The owner of North Fox Island, a man named Frank Sheldon, had purchased the land specifically for this purpose. As a matter of fact, the very first thing he did was built an airstrip on the island as a means to shuttle boys in and out. One of the men who sponsored the island was a former school teacher named Gerald Richards. He and Sheldon ran a nonprofit called Brother Paul's Children Mission. The organization was supposed to help underprivileged youth connect with nature, but upon their plane touching down on the landing strip, the boys would soon realize that that wasn't going to be the case. Now, it's a lot to get into, so much so that we had to make our podcast episode about this in 2 parts, because the owner of the island would eventually flee the country, making it extremely difficult to charge him with any involvement. The story disappeared from the news fairly quickly and was just dismissed as an urban legend. But North Fox Island was just a tiny piece in a much larger picture of child trafficking rings happening around the world. It wouldn't be until the early 2000s that more people began examining the evidence themselves, realizing just how extensive this operation truly was. North Fox Island has also been tied to a series of unsolved child murders committed by an unknown perpetrator known only as the Oakland County Child Killer. It's an awful lot to dive into, but if you're interested, you can check out my 2-part episode on this topic, or I can make a part 2 here.
Link in the bio, check it out. Like, share, subscribe to my page on.